Oakley here again. I'm so excited because today I have my sleep coach Jessica here. We have done a video in the past, so you can always find that on my YouTube channel as well, and that one's more geared towards newborn, starting to make a schedule, really like you're getting started and you're wanting to really figure out this whole sleep thing that we're all trying to navigate. So today, because of where Temple's at, Temple is 15 months old and we are in the 2 to 1, we're trying to get to that 1 nap. And this is kind of that age, I think, anytime, but she's going to tell us exactly when you should expect this. But I could tell through signs, which I'll kind of say those first, and then we'll have Jessica come in and just kind of tell us exactly what to expect. So for Temple, she was taking a nap usually around 10:30, and then another one around 1:30 or 2. And her first nap was an hour, and her second nap was usually an hour and a half. But I started noticing that first nap, she was just like hanging out in there, not really napping. Maybe it was like 20 minutes, and she would chill. But I was like, okay, she's obviously not that tired. So then I kind of just pushed it back, and I knew this was kind of the time because we had talked, and she was like, she saw my stories and was like, I think Temple might be ready for that 1 nap. And I was like, okay, I think you're right. So then I just kind of pushed it back to 11:30 for that first nap, and then she just wasn't napping the second. So she was very tired when bedtime came, obviously, because she would have maybe that 2.5 hour nap, but that was still a lot of wake time before her bedtime around 7 p.m. So then now we're at the point where we're at her going to bed around 12:30. And activities have been key. Like sitting at home is not working when you're in that time where they're getting tired. So we have been doing lots of fun things, and that's been really helpful for us. She comes home, we eat lunch, and right now she is napping. But I'm excited to get all the tips because I'm sure there's some things I could improve on. So first, I just want you to kind of say what to expect for the 2-in-1 and just kind of tell us your thoughts on it.
Okay, great. Well, Temple's right at the age. It's typically between 15 to 18 months is when you see that transitioning happening. And then one question when you're explaining Temple's first 2 nap schedule is she was going down around 10:30, but she remind us when she was waking up.
11:30 was originally her first nap was always a good hour.
Okay, so
and
that
then
was
her second nap was her big nap.
And that's the perfect alignment, keeping that second nap longer.
Yes.
But what about when did she wake up in the morning? When did she start her day?
She would wake up around 6:37.
Okay.
And now she's starting to wake up later, which I'm loving. But 6:37 was definitely her average wake time when she was on that good 2 nap schedule.
Okay, I asked that because I wanted to know how long was that awake time before that first nap when you started to see the struggle. And so that's right at 3.5 to 4 hours. So like I said, 15 to 18 months is typically when little ones drop to 1 nap, the best schedule. And you kind of, we'll talk about how to know they're ready, but first I want to talk about what does typical sleep look like for a 12 to 18 month old. And so total night sleep is 11 to 12 hours, exactly what Temple was doing. And then day sleep from 12 to 18 months is 1.5 hours to 3 hours.
Okay.
So you can see where different families could have a 45-minute and a 45-minute nap, or, an hour and a half nap, or 2-hour naps.
Yeah, so Temple was more on that 3 hour range because hers was usually 1 hour and then 1.5 hours for the second nap.
And then exactly where you said that she was at that 4-hour awake time in the morning. And so one of the key things that you noticed in Temple was that she started to not really be as tired around that 10-15 minute mark. Or you went ahead and put her down because that was her schedule, but you're seeing her not calm to sleep in her normal amount of time.
Yes.
And with Temple, she wasn't protesting. She was just chilling and hanging out because she knew that routine. But then you were like getting her up and like, well, now what do I do?
I'm like, all right, she's not tired, but.
So that's definitely one of the cues that they're ready. Sometimes they will fall asleep, but they'll only sleep 30 minutes, and they start naturally shortening that first nap.
Okay.
Sometimes they can start protesting more, so meaning they're crying or fussing or resisting going down for the morning nap, and you're like, what happened? And so the biggest thing is just to really watch those cues. Another thing that might be happening is They might be sleeping, but bedtime's not working like it used to. So either they're sleeping too much during the day, or their second nap is too late in the day, and then that's affecting bedtime. So those are some of the things to watch for in your toddler.
Okay, so say they're in that time of, okay, all these sound right. Like you're just describing someone's kid right now, maybe. What is the best way and tips to get them to that one nap, would you say?
If you're kind of finding that it's 3.5 to 4 hours is what their current schedule is or was, then it's kind of just start gradually pushing it back.
Yeah.
And definitely what you said about keeping them busy. A lot of times this is a great time to like go outside for a few minutes, get that light. And that change of scenery to distract them to do something else. Maybe walking up and down the sidewalk or using up that energy you said.
For sure.
And then keeping them awake. The hard part though, if you leave the house, is when they're in between.
And I thought Temple did that the other day, and I was like, man, we're doing so good. We've got these activities. We're gonna go home and take a great nap. And she fell asleep on the way home. And then when they get home and they're like, hey, think they had a 2-hour nap in the car and they're ready to party again. And you're like, oh dang it. So that did happen to me. So
that sleep debt was
do an activity, but don't go far.
Right. Or turn up the music, roll down the window.
Yeah. Whatever you can do to keep them awake.
Keep them awake.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, and that's what we did. And honestly, it's only been like a week of us doing this, and it's crazy how quickly they learn. Especially if you're already on a really good schedule, they're gonna naturally. I feel like that's been the blessing of doing this so early on with you. I called you at like freaking 4 weeks or something. And once you have that good start, it's just like the transitions happen so naturally. So that's always my biggest tip for moms is, hop on a phone call with her so then you can get those tips from the start, and it makes this transition a lot easier, and you're not like, wait, my kid naps at random times every day. But yes, with Temple, we did the whole 30 minutes. So at first we were pushing her. She was at 10:30 originally. We pushed her to 11, did lunch at 11, tried to keep her up till 11:30, and today she went to bed at 12:30, and you can tell, yes, she was very tired, but she wasn't like, miserable or anything. And we've been having like 3-hour naps, which is, I've had a few of y'all message me and saying that's the biggest game changer as a mom. When I'm like at the 3 hours, I'm like, what do I do? She's still sleeping. This is amazing. And I know, is this normal? I've noticed that she's waking up a little later because
they can
of
make
that
adjustment on their own. That maybe they're sleeping 11.5 hours at night and they're sleeping 3 hours during the day.
Yeah.
And so then they just make adjustments, and then they have that. And that's why I always talk about kind of having a set wake up time or a set time that you get them out of bed on those days when they do wake up earlier than normal. If they know they can roll around and play in their crib in the morning and then get up, it just builds in that extra to make up when they're overtired.
So I have a question with that then. So Temple, at least the past couple days, has been waking up at like close to 8:30. If that's not really what she was doing before, is that like when I should wake her up, or should I just let her sleep?
I think if your schedule's working right now, then that's fine.
Because that might become her new wake up time.
Most likely not, but it could.
You can dream.
But I was kind of wondering, she's going 6 hours in my head if she got up I know you said she had slept later, but I hadn't clarified how much later. But you had said she went down at 12:30 today. Well, she woke up at 8:30. See, then that makes sense. Of how that works. So I think it would just be if your nap is working, if your bedtime is working, and she's not waking up in the middle of the night, then your schedule is great. If it's working for you, it's fine.
All right.
And you can always refer to the total sleep. So a 12 to 18 month old should be sleeping 13.5 to 14 hours total.
Okay.
And so you can see
so that's with night plus your naps. But on average, probably 3 hours of sleep during the day is really ideal. Or it just kind of depends on the baby.
It really does, because there's plenty of
That
little
can
ones who
function great
take
on
an
an hour.
hour and a half to 2 hour nap.
Okay.
The 3 hours is the golden egg.
Yeah, and Temple's, that 3 is like at most, at least so far, which obviously I'm still early on this one nap thing, but usually it's been 2 to 2.5, and then 3 is just like...
I would say that's more normal.
Okay.
And what's funny is I have another client who works from home and is currently pregnant with her 4th, who saw me share your story the other day about the 3 hour nap, and so she shared her story about the 3-hour nap.
That's awesome.
Because
I love it.
we worked together when he was 5 months old, and she's like, I get all my work done.
Yeah, that 3 hours is golden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and tell me if there's anything else you wanted to say. I had y'all send in a few questions, and so I'm just going to kind of see which ones make sense. So, the age that this typically happens, 12 to 18 months, right?
15 to 18 months. 15
to 18 months. Okay, glad you clarified that, which that makes sense. Temple's 15 months. Will the nap one get longer as he gets used to the routine? With 2 naps, he slept 2.5 hours, but he has only 1 afternoon nap. He only sleeps like an hour and a half right now.
It should stretch, but I would say if you're at that minimum of an hour and a half, that's at least enough. I think the next question is, what is his mood in the afternoon, and how well is he sleeping at night? So occasionally, and it doesn't sound like you've had to do this with Temple, but occasionally to compensate for this transition, we move up bedtime.
Okay.
Because if they're sleeping, like you said, from 11:30 to 1,
Yeah.
it's huffing it to get it to 7.
Yeah.
So if we have to have like a 6 o'clock bedtime, I know you don't want to hear about that, or a 6:30 bedtime, just to ease the transition and make sure that they're not operating.
And we kind of had to do that the first 2 nights just because she was doing it like 11. She was falling asleep at 11:30, waking up by 1, and to make it all the way to 7 is really hard for her. So we were kind of going to bed at 6, and for the most part, she didn't wake up that much earlier. I mean, maybe an hour, which in the morning isn't ideal, but
and
just
the,
to get
and
used
the thought
to it.
process is, if you get them down before they're overtired, they're most likely maybe going to sleep the 12 and a half hours to make up for the adjustment of their day sleep going down.
Okay. So this person asked so for daycare moms, she says her daycare does 1 nap and her child's a year. But she usually does 2 naps on the weekends. Is that something she should try to keep with the 1 nap?
That's great.
Okay.
I work with a lot of working parents on daycare schedules, and we really talk through how to adapt your home schedule to set the child up for the most success at daycare, where it's very common for them to have a one nap at 12 months or even a little before. And so we set it up, that structure, so that they can make up for sleep on the weekend or with early bedtimes and things.
Perfect. Okay, so next you're going to talk about the awake period. Like, what should they expect for how long they should be awake, right? Before that nap? Okay.
Yes. So what Madison talked about was she started noticing that a 4-hour awake time wasn't really working. And so she went back to reading Temple's cues and, trying the 4.5 hour. And so when your child is ready to transition to 1 nap, you know that they can stay awake 4.5 to 6 hours before a nap and go down and calm their body efficiently, within 15 minutes or so, and then sleep at least a full cycle.
Awesome.
Versus if they go down at 5 hours and they fuss and complain, or they fall asleep really quickly and they only sleep 30 minutes, that might have been
overtired.
too long. And so just revisit those cues the next day.
So you mentioned, and we talked about this in our last YouTube, but some people may not know when you say a full cycle of sleep. Explain what that is, because that was like what I found the most interesting whenever we first started talking.
So birth to 12 months, the science isn't totally there. A sleep cycle is around 45 to 50 minutes. And for babies, that looks like 20 to 25 minutes of active sleep, moving, breathing, loudly, whimpering, could have a cry burst, could even have your eyes open, but they're asleep. So paying attention to night noise versus calling for you. And then they transition into quiet sleep, which is the breathing's very regular and they're very still. And every 45 to 50 minutes is a brief wakeful period before they restart the next cycle. So for toddlers, their sleep cycles are beginning to get closer and closer to an adult sleep cycle, which is 90 minutes. So generally it's around an hour. But we don't know exactly. For each child it's different. So you might have noticed that your child woke in intervals of 45 minutes. when they were younger, and now you're starting to see they might wake in intervals of an hour. You know,
For
they might
sure.
sleep 2 hours instead of an hour and a half, which
Okay.
maybe is 2 45-minute cycles and things
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, because Temple and sometimes on the night she'll like wake up and cry for like a few seconds and then go back to bed, and that's her probably waking in between a cycle and then putting herself back to sleep. So that is good, especially if you have a younger baby, to not run in instantly, because a lot of times they're not actually really needing you, and they're gonna put themselves back down.
Right.
So.
Keeping your reading those cues and having that confidence really helps.
Okay, last question. Gradual transition or cold turkey, in the sense that some days they may seem like they need 2, and some days need 1, or do you think if you're going to go for it, let's go for it?
I think every child is different, and I think also their days are different. And so I tell them all the time that you could have a kiddo that's doing great with 3 days of 1 nap, but you get to that 4th day and you're like, there is no way. So I would just, if your child needs that extra nap, then that's fine. I would just keep it short. If you see all those cues and you put them down at 10, don't let them sleep
For like 3 hours.
Right. Go ahead and wake them up at the 45-minute mark or the 60-minute mark, and then be able to get them
That's a
down
good
for
call.
another shorter nap, so that you're just watching those awake times.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think for the most part we answered good transitional questions for all those mamas that are in my phase where you're trying to get to that 1 nap. I feel like out of all the transitions, this one feels the most natural, I think.
Good.
At least for me. Hopefully that'll be the case for y'all too. Maybe that's because of you. But anyway, so y'all can go back again and watch our other YouTube for if you are, a little earlier on, and then come back to this later. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure to like and comment, and then you can find you at
Sleep Happy on Instagram.
Okay, and then your website is Sleep Happy Consulting, right?
Yes, correct.
Just so you know. But I'll tag her in the comments so y'all can see her. But thanks again for watching.
Thank you.